For our clay unit, please make sure you have already done your planning in your sketchbook before you grab the clay or check in with me. You need to draw a sketch for the head and also the body, and also, of course, mark what's going to be made with clay and what will be made with paint. We will be using paper clay, which is this modeling clay, and then I will be giving you a Ziploc bag. Please write your name on it. It's yours for the whole unit to make sure your clay doesn't get dry. And for me, I'm just going to use my hands and a paper clip. You will also need a bowl for water. I'll just hand that out in class, so it'll be different from mine. Remember, you have to check in with me first before you get your piece of clay. I need to make sure you have a good plan for it, because you will only be getting one piece of clay. I won't be giving you more. If you have leftovers, that's great, but you have to make sure you know what you're doing. So the chunk of clay will be given to you right from the get-go, so you need to make sure you wrap it in a wet paper towel and put it in an airtight bag. This is about the size you're getting. Again, because this is air dry, you need to make sure it is closed completely tight. So right now I'm wrapping up the extra clay. You will just need to wrap up your small piece, put it in a bag, airtight, maybe have a wet paper towel so you can use the clay the next time you're ready to use it. So now with the size that we're all going to use, I'm splitting up my chunk in about half so I can create a head and a body. Right now it's perfectly in half, and I'm making sure I have all my materials. I will be adjusting the amount of clay I use for the head versus the body as I work on it. So first thing you're going to do is squish your clay into a ball. And first I just squished it and then I rolled it in my hands. If you see any cracks, you're going to want to use some of your slip. So just some water. You don't have to mix clay in it unless you have some excess, no worries. Mix some of the water in there on the cracks to kind of seal it up, because you don't want the cracks there when it dries. So a lot of smushing, a lot of rolling here. As you can see here, I was really struggling with just making my clay come together. So I kept on pushing it into each other, trying to poke it together. You're going to have to do some problem solving with this, but again, just do your best to squish it, reshape, and use some water to really seal it up. You want this part to be as perfect as it can be, so the rest of the sculpting is a bit easier. Once it's as smooth as possible, you're going to start creating your pinch pot. So you're going to take your thumb and press it into the center of that circle or sphere you just made. Be careful to not press it through the top. And if if your nails are on the longer side, you might want to think about trimming them for this, because I was struggling. Again, you're just using your thumb and finger to press it in to create kind of a bowl. And this is called a pinch pot because you're literally just pinching the clay itself to create that curve and smooth it out. It's not going to be perfect, so don't put too much pressure on yourself. I did, so you're going to see me work on this over and over again. But it really just needs to be kind of a more boat shape pot, and just keep on pinching, keep on mushing, and trying to smooth it out. At this point, I'm really trying to smooth everything out and fill in the cracks. If you are looking carefully, it's more of a boat shape, which I end up kind of changing that to a more circular shape, but I do think a boat shape would help out the bobble part of this. So now that I am semi-happy with my head, I'm actually going to start grabbing my other chunk of clay to build up the body part. You all will be finishing up all of your details for the head first and then moving on to the body, because you have to work within our class time. I didn't have to. I didn't have to worry about my clay drying up the next day. I was able to just work, work, work. But because you have to only work within our class period, you will be doing everything, complete everything on one end and then the other. So with the other chunk of clay, I'm doing the same steps, squishing it and rolling it, so it's a bit easier to manage and a bit softer. And then I'm taking a small chunk off of that and putting it aside because I need to make some other detailed part with it. There's me being really picky. So with the body, same steps. Roll it around to get a circle-ish, a sphere first. Try to smooth the cracks as much as you can, and then you're actually going to make a cone shape because the neck part needs to be pointy in order to let the head actually bobble and wiggle and move around on top, right? So roll, roll, roll. I actually use the table to flatten an end to make sure one surface would be as flat as possible. So I'm squishing it on the table, and then I'm trying to pinch it upwards. So I'm using my fingers again to pinch, grabbing some water to smooth it out, trying to get a cone shape. So lots of pinching, pulling, and squishing. At this point, I have kind of a cone shape and a head. And I'm testing it out, and I think the head is way too big. So you're actually going to see me squish the head and kind of restart my head so it can fit the proportions. So I am going to make another pinch pot, and I will speed that through. So with my experience here, I realized I needed less clay in the head. So maybe instead of doing half, you can do a third, and then you have more to work with your accessories or make the body a bit bigger. If you have a design that makes more sense to have a bigger body or bigger head, you can adjust that so it works out. But I'm going to use my extra clay that I took off from the head and actually add it to add a bit to my accessories or extra stuff pile of clay, and then add the other chunk to my body clay. So I will help each of you proportion yours as I look at your designs, so you don't have to go back and forth like what I'm doing. At this point, I am reshaping my body so it fits the proportions I had planned out for my cat Bobblehead. I wanted it to look like it was a loaf of bread, you know how cats do that, but I didn't have enough clay to do that, so I had to adjust it. So I'm playing around and putting the head on top of the body. Um, Depending on your workflow, you might not be able to do this during the first day, but don't worry, we'll figure it out together. So I'm just taking my fingers and smoothing out the inside too, because I want it to not have any cracks. You don't have to be as precious as me. I really wanted it to be as smooth as possible, but then I ended up using a lot of water, and my clay is taking a while to dry up because of that. As I smooth out the cone, I'm just testing out the proportions to see if I like them. At this point, the clay won't stick together unless you push really hard, so you can gently put the head on top of the cone or the body. Again, just please make sure um, you keep your clay moist and wet if you're going to make the head and the body around the same time. Be really careful about that, or else you're going to have to glue extra pieces onto your clay instead of actually building the clay together. So with the extra clay I set aside, I'm going to start building some of my details. And I'm trying to create the crescent moon right now. I'm speeding through this part because my first attempt isn't successful. And I'm just using a paper clip to cut things out. For this whole process, I just use my fingers and a paper clip. And make sure you score and use some slip on your extra details in order to attach it. So I am just testing out the crescent moon. So I'm placing it on the area I want, and once I like it, I score it. So that's when you make hatch marks into the clay and then add some water, and you're basically trying to like glue it in. And I press it in. I don't know if I keep this one. I don't remember if I like it, but I can reshape it while it's on the head too and move it around. It won't get stuck unless you push it really, really hard. And I'm just pushing it into slightly because I want a little smooth surface. So you can test things out. You just need to make sure you aren't pressing too hard unless you want it to be permanently there, because you might make it hard to take off on the head. At this point, I'm going to start making the ears. So I just took aside some extra clay. I squish everything into a shape that I can work with first, so like a circle or a sphere. And then I'm patting it onto the surface because I know I want it to be flat, and that table surface is going to help me out. And just using my fingers to rework it, pinch, push, to get the triangle shape I want for the ears and the width I want as well. For the rest of this video, I'm just going to let you watch the process. It is sped up a little bit. Although this video is almost 20 minutes long, this took me about 2 hours to complete. So please take your time. Pay attention to the fact that I'm scoring the items before I attach it. So you gotta score it and then use some slip, and then you can attach extra stuff to it. You can also use a bit of water to help you smooth down the clay. It does not need to be super smooth or anything. That's totally up to you. You can keep it as organic looking as you want. I'm just picky, so I want it to be smooth out, but because I use so much water, mine took longer to dry.